Hey toy fans, you all know me, I'm Tony from Analog Toys, and welcome to episode 13 of Palitalk, a retro toy podcast. And I'm joined today by my friend and host... Whoops. Sorry about that. I had the other YouTube panel open and I started listening to myself. I am joined today... It's a slight delay there, so I was like, who's just jumped on the stream? Yes, I'm joined today by my friend Thomas, host of the Deliciously Honest YouTube channel, LioConvoy Reviews. How are you doing today, Thomas?
I'm doing all right. Appreciate you bringing me on. I wouldn't say that I do deliciously good work. I think it's kind of subpar, like a little bit above average sometimes, but my editing is absolute hot garbage.
It's what you've got to say though, not that's the most important thing. I think Michael he did like a surprise live stream yesterday, and I caught bits of it because I was working, but I kind of watched it back in the evening, and he was sort of talking about some other YouTube, and he's saying, production value is important and all that, but the main thing is having honesty, integrity, and actually having something to say, and that's your channel ticks all those boxes. So thank you for taking time out of your day to come on here. We were going to try and do this last week, and then obviously, there's a bit of drama, happened. So we had to postpone. But you are known as pretty much the only Thundercats focused YouTube channel that's around. I don't know of any other sort of kind of solely Thundercats based. Tell me a little bit about how your whole fascination with Thundercats started.
Well, that of course dates back to like literally every other person who runs any channel like this, back to when I was a kid. I saw Thundercats. I enjoyed it more than most of the 80s cartoons I watched. And, going through the early 90s, Thundercats, of course, had to fade away because of syndication and other cartoons popping up. But then when Toonami hit in 1997, Thundercats pops back up. And at that point, I'm a teenager, so I get to watch the entire series from beginning to end with full concept and cognition of what it is, and just completely fell right back in love with it again. And I enjoy it because I enjoy things like the writing of, say, J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. And despite a lot of people, and I actually did a video on this, a lot of people saying that Thundercats borrows from He-Man. It actually doesn't. Thundercats primarily borrows from Tolkien and Lewis and Arthurian lore. Specifically, Peter Lawrence was a massive King Arthur fan, and you can see that within how it's structured. So that form of fantasy really appeals to me because of my personal preferences. And of course, I'm a really big fan of nature in general, and I'm really fond of apex predators like big cats. So of course, Thundercats, that works for me.
Yeah. I've always found all the different pop culture properties when we were children. There were kind of military action themed properties like G.I. Joe, and for me in the UK, Action Man and Action Force. You had your science fiction, and then you kind of had your sort of fantasy type. I've always leaned more towards fantasy than I have sci-fi. And I don't look at, like, for example, Star Wars as a science fiction property. It's a space fantasy. I was big into Masters of the Universe when I was younger. But I think by the time Thundercats came around, certainly in the UK, by the time Thundercats had come around, I'd really latched on to, I was more into watching live action movies like Rambo, and I was collecting Action Force at the time and stuff like that. So Thundercats was a cartoon that I was definitely aware of as a child. I watched episodes on TV, but it never... You've talked before about how Michael doesn't like... I'm talking Michael at Retro Blasting. He doesn't like Thundercats. You're a huge Thundercats fan, and you can still be friends. I'm kind of in the middle on Thundercats, where it just doesn't... It never registered with me. I don't really have an opinion about it. So how do you... What have you got anything to say to the audience about someone who completely dislikes a property that you particularly love?
I don't care. What I mean by that is, there's a big problem within a lot of nerd culture, and I'm sure you've noticed it. You're older than me. You've been around more than I have. Your channel's bigger. A lot of people, what they tend to do for whatever reason is they have supplanted their personality with the thing they like. So when they find somebody who either dislikes or doesn't care about that thing, they lose it. To me, if and this has happened several times, I'll criticize something and somebody will come back, well, I think Thundercats sucks. Okay. That doesn't change what I just said about this thing, though. So that's fine. And generally, I don't care. What matters to me when it comes to dealing with somebody or having a friend or interacting with people is their personal values, their standards, and their morality, far more than whether or not they like specific nerd niche thing I do. Again, Tony, you can't stand Transformers. I've got like 12 Deltoff shelves and boxes full of those things because I love Transformers. And, I'll have some people give me grief like, well, you have more Transformers stuff than Thundercat stuff. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because one produces more things. So of course I have more Transformers. Like you don't see the appeal to Transformers either. There's no point in getting angry about it because I like G.I. Joe. I was trying to collect vintage until they started disintegrating and the prices went absurd. I'm not paying $50 for a beachhead. I'm not. It's not happening.
So just to clarify, I don't particularly dislike Transformers toys. It's the storyline, the cartoon. I was just never able to latch on to Transformers cartoon when I was a child. It was aired in the UK. There were a number of cartoons from the States that weren't aired in the UK. G.I. Joe being one. Like when it was redubbed as Action Force, we were only able to view that by going to the local video store and renting a video cassette. The Rambo cartoon was not aired. Britain had a lot more censorship on violence in cartoons. For example, when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, they weren't allowed to show Michelangelo's nunchucks because they considered the nunchucks to be, kids make their own nunchucks and they end up cracking their own skulls with it. So
they totally don't make their own bow staffs. That never happens.
Yeah, I used to make those bow staffs out of those cardboard tubes. Like once you've pulled all the Christmas wrapping paper off, but it only lasts one blow. So
see, that's why you got to get inventive. You got to wait till mom's out of the house and use the broomstick and smack your brother with it.
Yeah. Connor Fuller. Connor Fuller, thank you very much for the super chat. He's requesting a poetry-free zone. I think you're good. I think you're good.
Don't make me wax philosophical. I still got some of that stuff saved.
And Brian Dillingham, thank you for the super chat. He says you're getting closer to a USS flag. Still a long way off, but I'll get there. Thank you very much, Brian. I can't remember. Someone was messaging me just yesterday. You remember when particularly I think when Rambo 2 came out, there was an influx, certainly in the UK, probably in the States as well, of all these really cheap Chinese knockoffs of the Rambo survival knife. But instead of the compass, Rambo had like a small button compass, which was like inside the hilt of his survival knife. Mm-hmm. These cheap Chinese knockoffs came out with like the big like bubble sphere compass. Was that a big craze in the United States, those Rambo knives coming out?
Only in so much that I recall from like a bunch of random weapon sets, because even like in the 90s, which I have more memories of in terms of time period, there were so many like random ninja weapon sets that were given a green and red color scheme and had the text of Ninja Turtles on it that had absolutely nothing to do with the show, completely not related at all. So I've seen the knives you're talking about in so many different bootleg sets that it had to be popular somehow.
I had quite a few of the toy Rambo knives, and even like cheap Chinese actual metal knives. I had one of those as well. Just missed a super chat here from Laser Pants. Thank you very much, Brian. It says, question for you guys. What would you say to someone that tells you you're childish or a man-child for enjoying things like 80s animation, toy collecting, gaming, etc.? I'm going to let Thomas go first.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would ask if they even lift. And if they look at me funny, I call them a pussy and tell them to go lift. Secondly, I ask, well, what are your interests? And if they list anything, and I do mean anything, you just start tearing it apart. Because people who come at you like that, they have no actual way of discerning anything. They have extreme cognitive dissonance. Their biases are absurd. When it becomes a man-child thing is when it overtakes everything else, or it becomes an addiction that you need to deal with. And that's a medical thing. But there's nothing wrong within perspective of doing these things, so long as it does not dominate your life. That's why in some cases, like I'll give you an example. When I went to BotCon, I took the wife with me, and one time she likes to look. Like, she doesn't really collect Transformers or care so much about them, but she likes to look. And she was looking at a booth, and a dude was selling a Japanese Transformer called Deathsaurus, and Deathsaurus was mint in box. And a gentleman said, "Hey, can I take a look at that?" And the seller takes it off the booth, hands it to him, and he looks at it, says, "How much you want for it?" And the seller said, $3,000. And the man immediately handed it back and went to reach for his wallet. And my wife weren't pale and had a severe case of sticker shock because like, it all depends on how you conduct yourself. Like, it's strange to other people because they don't get it. But as long as it's something you enjoy, and as long as it's not causing you any distress or the people around you any distress, it's fine. If they say you're a man-child, like, everybody is a nerd about something. And if they say they're not, they're lying through their teeth. You have people that are obsessed with sports. You have people that are obsessed with movies. You have people that are obsessed with music. You have people that are obsessed with their work. Everybody is a nerd about something. So if they're saying that, they have cognitive bias that's based on nothing but whatever their own preconceived ideas are.
Good answer. So now it's my turn, I suppose. So Ryan's asking, what would you say to someone that tells you you're childish or a man-child for enjoying things like 80s animation? Well, I would say, Ryan, that I spent 10 years of my life helping to weave the blanket of freedom under which you sleep. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Much better answer than mine.
I allowed your answer to play out so I could come up with that. That didn't just come straight to my mind.
But now you'll have it.
Yeah. I just want to make a few quick hellos here. Pastel Opal. I can't pronounce that. I'm obsessed with Hatsune Miku. Is that correct?
Hatsune Miku. It's a Japanese toy line, a Vocaloid, a music sensation. It's very strange, but she's very fond of it, and she likes collecting them.
Nice. I also want to do a shout out to Retro Blasting. He's a little bit late, but he's here, and Melinda Mock as well. So thank you guys for joining in. A couple more super chats. Connor Fuller says, question for the panel. Growing up, I do not remember Ninja. My pals had a load of motors. Was he popular in the UK, Oz, or USA? Well, certainly for me, I got out of Masters of the Universe by the third year of it, I think it was. So yeah, Ninja came much later in the line. So he was available in the UK, but it wasn't on my radar. What about yourself, Thomas?
We're talking about Ninja?
Yeah.
Well, as far as He-Man goes, I'll be honest here. I love He-Man, but most of my He-Man toys, matter of fact, I think all but Battle Cat died in my childhood. Because, man, we played rough with our stuff. Like, that stuff got destroyed, man. All we had was Battle Cat left. He was the only one sturdy enough to survive playtime. So I never owned the original Ninja. And again, when He-Man was out, and like, I was born in 85. So when I got really heavy into He-Man, it was in the 90s when I started rediscovering things I had watched when I was a kid. So the He-Man stuff I have now is stuff I've collected since then. I do not have a Ninja, and that's because, well, I have one, but I don't have one. The one I have is sitting in the private warehouse at Big Bad Toy Store from the Origins line. And I don't have an interest in the vintage one because, again, same problem I have with the Beachhead. I'm not going to sit here and just be like, I'm going to spend $200 because that one has a specific two pieces of plastic with a string. No. Yep. I could buy like a better Transformer for that, or a sword, a low budget sword for that, or put it to a new Wacom tablet or something. I cannot mentally justify that for something that I'm not as heavy in as other things I am. I do like He-Man. I think the original toy line is fantastic, an absolute masterclass in reusing what you have. But I can't justify it. Just like I could never justify buying a Scareglow vintage or classics one because a friend of mine runs a toy store here in the Houston area, and he has a classic Scareglow in package, and asked him how much it was, and he told me, I laughed at it. I'm not paying $400 for a Scareglow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've never understood the fascination with Scareglow. If you heard that, that's my son slamming the door on the way to school. He does not know how to shut a door quietly. We've got another super chat here from Daniel Dorian. Thank you very much. He says, sending me a super chat for finally having a genuine fellow Transformers and Thundercats fan. Again, it's just because we like different properties, there's no reason not to have someone on the channel. It's we've become friends over the years with LioConvoy and retro blasting, and I'm a fan of honesty and integrity. So it's an absolute pleasure to have Lio on the show today. I'm just going to check if the chat jumped on me. So
it always does that.
Yeah, I think we're good. So, do you have a collection of the original LJN Thundercats toys?
Here. Let me see here. Can I do this? I'm going to say yes.
Yep. Very nice.
Now, I'm not going to pan down because I'm sitting here, but I've also got all the play sets on the floor. They don't fit on the shelves. So, yeah, I've got, I think I'm missing 3 figures for the LJN line. I'm missing most of the Berserker, so about closer to 7. But I'm missing the Astro Moat Monster, the Tungosaurus, and the Stinger. And I looked at how much they're going for, and I said, no. So I'm not. Here, let's see if I can do I don't know how well your chat knows Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but I'm going to see if I can do a Carl Branatanalewski. I ain't doing it. It ain't worth it. It doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Do you have the Cat Slayer?
You darn right I have the Cat Slayer.
Is that a good toy?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. It's really not. And it's neat. It's a fantastic display piece. It's just not a good toy. And the reason why I'm saying it's not a good toy is it has variances on it that cause extreme break and stress for just general play. LJN, as much as I do love the vintage Thundercat line for the nostalgia, and I do love Thundercats as a property, I had to be objective. And the LJN toy line was more concerned with being inventive than it was being functional and compatible. Specifically, believe it or not, the LJN toy for the Cat Slayer is kind of a hybrid of the cartoon's colors, but the second production materials version of the Cat Slayer, which you'll see in some old coloring books and some production material where it's all just a stone facade on the outside. That's why it's so weird looking in front, and it's not scaled well, even for what it is. I know most of the Thundercat toy line has a really weird scale in terms of vehicles and accessories, but for the play set, what does it do? It relies on laser tag technology, which I don't know how to fix. Most people wouldn't know how to fix. I could probably send it to somebody. And it has an opening door that is triggered by a laser tag, and it has a jail and 2 opening cat paws. It's a very strange playset because unlike, say, Castle Grayskull, where you can get the characters to interact with things to do the movements, you have to literally be the child at the gunner's chair of the head, moving the head around with actual control handles to get it to do its basic function. It was like they were trying to compromise on, do we want this to be a role-play item or a playset? And they just could not figure out which one it was, so they decided to go with both. It's just really strange when you look at it.
Yeah. It's the way you just described that really reminds me of the Kenner the real Ghostbusters Firehouse, where it's not exactly the same, but it's a great display piece. As a toy, there's nothing going on there. But then you say that to a Ghostbusters fan and they'll just lose their minds. The Firehouse was awesome. No,
it wasn't.
It's just a large hunk of plastic.
There was a dude on a toy group that I follow who had been trying to sell his Ghostbuster playset, his Firehouse, for months, and people kept backing out of it. So some dude got so frustrated, he bought it and then paid them extra to set it on fire. And he did. And then he posted it to the group, and you had people coming out the woodworks. Oh, I would have bought it. No, you didn't. It's been here for months, and you didn't buy it. It was hilarious.
There's something ironic about burning a firehouse.
Right? I thought it was genius. That is poetry.
Venkman, thank you for the super chat. I think we got a question here for Lio. He says, what would Mumra think of Action Force?
Okay, what Venkman wants from that is he wants me to do my Mumra voice. So,
okay.
I think if they were to show up and challenge me, Mumra, the ever-living, I would show them full force. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Do you do a lot of voices?
Occasionally, and only when I get to make people really angry at me about it. I've done several. I drive my co-host at the Thundercast nuts because I'll do Snarf's voice and they hate it. I don't know, Tony. Should we really be talking like this?
That is a great impression of Snarf. I love that.
I miss Bob McFadden. He was such a good voice actor.
Yeah, yes, he was. Chat's busy today. We've got quite a few people watching here, so I'm just going to see if I have another question for you.
Can I say something real quick here?
Yes, go ahead.
It's both on topic and off topic. Primarily, I'd imagine your analytics like mine, and it shows the majority of your watchers are between the age of 35 and a billion. So let me just go ahead and say this here. If there's a person that inspires you in terms of like professional art or music or anything, and they're still around, meet them now. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we'll get into this later. I, at no point, for some dumb reason, until 2016, being prodded into it, ever thought to do any of this. So all the people, for the most part, that I would have wanted to meet have long since been gone for things like Thundercats. And yesterday, this actually happened on the 6th, but no news was finally broken. One of my favorite Japanese comics, Berserk, masterclass in draftsmanship, beautiful art. The artist for that passed away. He's 50. And I'm never going to meet him. His story is probably never going to get finished. And he had fantastic art. You never know when these people are going to go. So do what Tony does and go meet your heroes like Bob Breakin now while you can and they're still alive.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I first met Bob Breakin. It's 10 years this year. It was 2011 when I first met him in person. And to me, that really was... I really don't get starstruck. I've met a few celebrities in my life, and they're just normal people.
Yes, they are.
There's a private members club in the middle of this. Is going to be a weird story. There's a private members club in the middle of London known as the Groucho Club, and to become a member of that, you have to obviously have to be nominated by other members, but it's for media and so journalists, actors, that kind of thing. And I have a close friend who is has been a journalist his whole adult life, and I've gone to this private members club with him. It's a very exclusive kind of venue, and I remember the first time he ever took me there, I would have been kind of in my late 20s. I was in the special forces at the time. I was a bit quite rough around the edges, and I went into this place. And I don't remember the guy's name. He was a British actor, but he played a part in the Terrence Malick film A Thin Red Line. Anyway, he decided it was a good idea to push in front of me at the bar. So we just had a conversation about the difference between, acting as a soldier and being a soldier, and I think he got an education that evening. But I really digress there.
God, I've met quite a few voice actors that I've enjoyed the work of. Of course, I don't get starstruck, but I was at a convention called Space City Con that no longer exists because the people who ran it are clowns that flaked on their people. But I was walking by and I saw a table and it was Jim Cummings. And I don't know how much you know about voice actors, but Jim Cummings is like in almost everything. Like he's almost as well known as Frank Welker. He does Winnie the Pooh. He does Tigger. He did Darkwing Duck. He's done a whole slew of all these different characters. And when I first saw the booth, I'm like, I'm staying here. because I want to meet this dude because this dude's wild. This dude's like done so many voices. And then he walks up and that man's all of 5'3", and I did not expect that. But he was the funniest guy there. And then I met Dana Snyder, who does the voice of Master Shake on Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And that dude, I didn't know he had done the voice of Granny on Squidbillies. And these may not even be shows you're aware of, but they're bizarre. I don't even know if they'd be. No. I don't even know if be your sense of humor. Granny is this insane older squid hillbilly character. And while I was getting his signature, I'm like, I didn't know you did the voice of Granny, because of course he had all the paperwork out and all the images, and he just leaned over and said, well, if you ever want a private session, big boy, I'll take you up back and show you all about Granny. So he's just doing a bit on it. Like, all right, I definitely believe you now. But the person I remember meeting the best was there was a toy show going on in San Antonio, and generally I don't travel long distances for toy shows, but they had two people that were there that I initially wanted to meet. You might be upset when I say that I didn't actually follow through on the second one. But it was Larry Kinney, the voice actor for Lion-O, the Cocoa Puff Bird, Count Dracula, Count Chocula, all these characters. That man, I did not expect that man to be like 6'7". I did not. Yeah.
Wow.
And he is the kindest, warmest person that like you're ever gonna meet. He doesn't look like he'd ever want to hurt anybody. He's almost like when you were a kid and you went to go see Santa Claus at the mall, like that level of kind.
Yeah.
And I think he's also kind of trained himself to respond in certain ways to fans. Like whenever they tag him in something or ask him a question, he always responds with "ho." So I think it's just has that Control-C, Control-V. But they're fascinating people sometimes. Of course, there are some voice actors that are absolute Weasley pieces of garbage, but that's another topic for another matter.
Yes, yeah. So have you got any interest or any awareness of some of the British animation that was coming out in the 80s? I'm talking things like Danger Mouse, Banana Man, Super Ted, any of those kind of cartoons?
I believe Super Dave that was here in the States. I did know about Danger Mouse, but the UK cartoon, there's actually an animated movie that I am the most familiar with is Watership Down.
Oh, yes.
My wife refuses to watch that movie.
As in ever, or has she seen it once and refuses to?
She's never seen it. She just heard the synopsis, like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, but it's cool. It's well written. It's fantastic animation, solid storytelling. I'm not watching rabbits get torn apart. Like, it's nature. I don't care. I love that series. Like both the books and the animation. It's great.
Yeah, Watership Down, man, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that was that had a really big like cultural impact in the UK when that came out. I remember, I'm pretty sure we were made to watch Watership Down in school and I can write some essays about it and stuff. So yeah, thanks for bringing that back. I might have to revisit Watership Down. It's a very sad story. I don't think I'd be able to get my wife to watch it either, unless I didn't tell her what it was about. But
you got to trick her first, man, and then she'll get mad at you later.
Yeah. Well, so we're getting a little bit off topic here, but I was on a retro talk on Retro Blasting's Patreon a few weeks back, and we started talking about Band of Brothers, which me and Michael have talked about a lot. And I've got that on DVD, and I was like, I really need to get that on Blu-ray. And it turned up the other day, and me and the wife, we're planning to kind of binge watch at least half the series on Sunday. It's the first thing I've been able to convince her to watch, something that I want to see, and she's willing to sit down with me. So she doesn't like anything sci-fi, fantasy, whatever it is. It's got to be real, and she likes true stories. I'm like, well, this is a true story. It's real life. Sit down and watch Band of Brothers, and I've got a gut feeling she's actually going to enjoy it. So we'll see how that goes.
Good. You got to be careful with them based on a true story thing, because they said the same thing about Air Bud.
300.
Aaron Stepien, to answer your question about why I just use my icon, 2 reasons. Number 1, don't want to put anything on camera. Number 2, apparently it makes some really stupid people really mad that I don't show my face, and I find that hilarious.
Yes. Yeah, there's I got no issue with people who don't want to show their face. I mean, I've had no issue. Like, I made a conscious decision when I started I was already in my kind of Action Man documentary anyway. So when I started the channel, it's like, certain people in the toy collecting community knew who I was. They already knew my face. But then when you walk out of a hotel room, this was, trying to think when this was, November last year, I had to go down to the city of Perth for a couple of nights for a work conference. And on the last night there, we all kind of went out and had a few drinks, and I had a very, very late night. And I stumbled out of this hotel in the morning in the middle of the city trying to catch an Uber to my mum's birthday lunch with the family. And I'm, bloodshot eyes, really hungover, trying to light a cigarette. And this guy walked up to me in the middle of the street and he went, "Analog toys?" I was like, "Dude, not today." Yeah, but some people have genuine reasons for not showing their face on camera. My buddy Sal at 2 Cents Toys has a very genuine reason for not showing not telling people his real name or showing his face. It's a genuine reason. It's very different to someone actually putting on the persona of someone else, but we're not going to go into that.
Well, the thing is, like, I when I do my little drama videos, when I actually have scripted drama videos, I sit down with the horrifying lion mask. I joke around and say it's for 2 reasons. Number one, I have a face made for radio, so I don't scar my viewers, and then I do scar them because it looks like it had a stroke. So it's just a bit of theater, and it's just fun to do, like, just to see how people react. Oh my, what's going on? This is horrifying, but I can't stop. It's like a train wreck.
They are some of my favorite videos of yours when you're in the chair and what is it you have in the glass there?
Here's the funny thing. A lot of people assume that it's like something alcoholic. It's either Mountain Dew or it's Dr. Pepper. I don't drink alcohol.
Okay. Have you ever drank alcohol?
The only alcohol I've consumed has been whatever comes in NyQuil or Dayquil when I'm sick and I'm stubborn, so I drag myself to work anyways.
Yep. That's good. I wish I didn't drink alcohol, but
well,
life is life.
my old man set at least a good example on that, as far as he never drank around us, and the one relative I did have that did drink, he's dead now because of it. So yeah, stuff like that will get your attention real quick when you're that young.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So well said, Michael.
Right?
So Retro Blasting here said, "Isn't it amazing how trolls will slam you for not showing your face? Why does anyone slam you for not showing your face? I don't even understand that. But they'll also slam your appearance when you show your face. Yeah,
that's because that's what they want to do. Like, oh, now we can make fun of him for this. Like, all right, that's fine. You're still a pussy and you don't lift, so who cares?"
Yeah. I mean, the flip side to that is you could have a toy-centric YouTube channel where you show your face and don't show the toys. That, to me, I've tried to have even when I do my you know who I'm talking about. Even when I do my scripted videos, I've kind of got this. I don't get a calculator out, but I've kind of got this equation that I apply where it should be no more than 30% of me on camera and 70% toys. That's kind of once I've finished editing a video, I'll go back and rewatch it, and I was like, that's for a produced video, because I'm showcasing the actual toys. That's what people are here to see. Mm-hmm. See these old vintage toys in high definition on YouTube. So they don't need to see my face. Obviously, on a show like this, that's all you get. But we got the hardcore fans here today. So
real quick, we do have some questions here, apparently directed to me. So let me scroll back up all right. So Gojitron.
Yes.
I recognize him. Good to see you. Question for Thomas. Why the name LioConvoy? Was there something special about Beast Wars 2 that connected with you? Okay. So Tony's not going to have a clue about any of this, so I'm going to try to fill him in. All right. So Tony, after
I actually do.
You do?
I watched a video of yours this morning, and it might have been the one about Thundercats Raw. Anyway, you put this image up and you said, "Hey, that's where the name came from." But please tell the audience.
Okay, so in the 90s, Hasbro completely re-engineered their Transformer line because Generation 2 failed miserably. Machine Wars was coming out, but it wasn't going to do good. So they, oddly enough, this is right after they acquired Kinney, right? They acquired Kinney, So that's for all you Star Wars people, and said, look, we need to do something with Transformers. It's a dying brand. And they handed it to their Kenner division and said, do something. Kenner took a look at it and said, but what if animals? So they made Beast Wars, which oddly enough is the natural progression. Transformers turn into different vehicles because they are suitable for disguises. But if the Transformers are no longer interacting with humans and they're just exploring the galaxy, what do? Well, they have to take the form of whatever the life is there. So animals. And it completely revitalized the brand. And what happened was Japan, because Japan's was always at that point kind of disconnected from what the US was doing, decided to do a sister series called Beast Wars II, which has some continuity problems because their dub of the original Beast Wars cartoon was primarily a comedy, first and foremost. But secondly, there's scaling issues. So in the original Beast Wars, the main hero leader, Optimus Primal, he's about twice the height of a human, right? Whereas Generation 1 Optimus Prime was 25 feet tall. Well, they didn't quite understand that in Japan. So when they did Beast Wars II, all those characters were still scaled to Generation 1 size. So they wound up these group of Autobot descendants called Maximals wind up landing on a different planet where there's a weird energy reading, and they're trying to explore it and trying to stop the Predacons, Destrons, from overtaking it. And their leader, because all Autobot and Maximal leaders, or Cybertrons as they're called in Japan, their suffix is convoy, because that's what Diaclone's Optimus Prime was called, convoy. So anything that's an animal or anything else is prefix of animal or vehicle, convoy. So because the leader of that show took a lion as his alt mode, it was LioConvoy. So Beast Wars Neo came out after that, and its convoy, its Optimus character, was a woolly mammoth, and they decided the brilliant name of Big Convoy. But as far as Beast Wars Neo is Police Academy Transformers, and it's hilarious. But LioConvoy I first saw, oddly enough, on the Beast Wars official website, because they were doing some special thing to where they were importing LioConvoy and the Galvatron from there. And he had the coolest, still to this day, he's one of my favorite Transformer designs because it has that unmitigated cool factor to it. Most Beast War toys or characters, the animal head was on the chest or on their arms. No, this dude had like lion haunches. His right shoulder was the head. His left shoulder was the hindquarters. He had these giant claws. Really freaking cool look. Really kicking name. So I had used that from like 1997 till now. It's just a really cool name. Nobody else. I only had one other person who's ever tried to use it like publicly and almost got me in trouble at BotCon. But it's just stuck with me ever since. And 9 times out of 10, if there's a LioConvoy anywhere, it's probably me.
1997, you had that name. Is that like in online forums and things like that?
Yes, either 97 or 99. Again, that was over 20 years ago, making you all feel old now. But it was one of those 2 times, because that was also when I first started posting on the message board Allspark when it first came around. Actually, it was bigbot.com, then Allspark. That was my introduction to fandom discourse, was on message boards. So, there's all that stuff.
I'm not going to scroll back through the chat because it was a fair way, and I'm going to lose my mind. So apologies, I don't remember the person who posted this, but there was someone in the chat just before when you were talking about the lion mask you wear in the videos. I said, the funny thing is that it's not a mask. He just tells people it's a mask so he doesn't scare them.
Shh, don't reveal my secret like that, Tony. Why are you doing this?
Matt Swafford, thank you very much for the super chat. He said, "What's up, homies? Super chat just because. Much appreciated, mate." And Michael at Retro Blasting seems to like the name Maximal, so for his next cat. So now Melinda's.
I have been trying to bully that. I have been trying to bully this man to watch Beast Wars for over a year now. He says he'll get to it after Bionic 6, and I hope his brain isn't fried on the Bionic 6 intro to do so, because it's a stark difference. He's going to see the beautiful flowing animation of Bionic 6, and then he's going to get to 1996 CGI, and he's just going to look out the window and think, not today.
Derek Rushing's got a question here. He says, LioConvoy's reviews. Did you pick up the LioConvoy MP figure? If so, what did you think? What's can you tell me what MP stands for?
I will, but first I want to answer Daniel Dorian real quick. He says, Lyle, are you aware how pricey and rarely LJ and Cat Slayer is at the moment? It's my top. I am so sorry. Yes, that LJ and Cat Slayer actually jumped up absurdly in price. And you want to know why it did, Tony?
Go ahead.
Because of Thundercats Roar. Because that show got viral on Twitter and people hated it so much, people started just randomly buying stuff from their childhoods. So in the period of a year, the Cat Slayer went from like $300 to $900.
Wow, that's really interesting. So they're seeing this property that they love kind of get really tarnished by this new cartoon. So they're trying to put, I suppose, latch on to what they thought was good in the first place. That's interesting. Yes,
and real quick, Michael, yes, it is reboot with Transformers because it was done by the same company. Now to Derek's question. Sorry, I had to get there. Masterpiece, Tony, or MP is short for Masterpiece.
Okay, yep.
Okay. If you ever own a Masterpiece Transformer, sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they make your soul hurt. Unfortunately, the LioConvoy's in the latter. He looks like he has a genetic disorder in beast mode. They made some really goofy choices. You can see most of his robot mode parts from underneath him in a not pleasant way. He's got really odd proportions. It's primarily the beast mode that's the biggest issue. The robot mode looks fantastic, except for the clunky way they had the lion arms designed. The original LioConvoy toy came out in 1997. Masterpiece LioConvoy came out in, I think, 2019, because I actually reviewed that on the channel. And if you can't make a better toy 20 years later, there's a problem. And unfortunately, it was not a better toy. It doesn't look as cool. The paint flakes all over the place. And I don't know what they were thinking. I have yet to see another Masterpiece Beast War toy that's anywhere near that bad. Like, I don't know what they were doing. It was a mess. It made me hurt. Because what I did was when MGO did a review on it, I said, I've used this screen name for the better part for over 20 years, and this makes my soul hurt. And of course, he had some fun. He responded, LOL, Snowflake. I told him I will have my vengeance.
Michael says, if Lai had just lied to me and told me Kylie did a voice in Beast Wars, I'd have watched it 2 years ago.
Yeah, but then I'd be lying, and I don't do that.
And Matt Swafford saying here at Retroblasting, I'm more excited for you to watch Beast Wars than any other property. I don't think I will ever watch Beast Wars just because I'm just not into I've had a number of conversations with people about the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And people, it's so much better than, I can't remember who the other guy they brought in to direct it, Joss Whedon. It's so much better and all that. I've kept telling these people, but I don't like Zack Snyder. Not personally. I don't like Zack Snyder films. I don't like Watchmen. I don't like 300. I didn't like Man of Steel. The only reason I sat through the Zack Snyder cut, of Justice League is because... did that come on? Was it HBO in the States? So we don't have an HBO streaming service here in Australia. So when I looked it up, it was on a brand new streaming service called Binge. And it was, sign up for a 14-day free trial. And I was like, well, I get to watch it for free. So I'll see what it's all about. Watched it for free, deleted my Binge account and went, Zack Snyder owes me 4 hours of my life. Not for me. No offense meant to anyone who likes it, just not for me. Yes, it was HBO Max in the US. So we have HBO on like cable TV here, but it doesn't have a streaming service, so I think it works a little bit different down in Australia. I had some other questions here about. So aside from Thundercats, can you name me, say, like your other 2 or 3 favorite 80s cartoons aside from Thundercats?
I'd be happy to, but real quick, it was okay. I'm going to go ahead and lightning answer some of these questions so we don't lose them, because we will if I don't. Firstly, Michael, I hate you for the pun you just made, because he said if I had lied to him, he would have called me LioConvoy, or because he's a white lion, white LioConvoy. So real quick here, Lio, I've apologized if you said this before, but I'm curious, since you love Beast Wars, who's your most favorite character? Dinobot. Let's see here. Do you guys ever get burned out of the properties you love? I love Marvel Comics. I do sometimes. Let's see here. There's Hey LioConvoy. Did you ever pick up Black LioConvoy or Flash LioConvoy? Yes, I did. I have both of them. or any of the. I did not pick up any of the LioConvoy knockoffs because they look terrible. And no, my favorite Generation 1 character from the original cartoon. I can answer that very quickly. Me, Grimlock King. I love Grimlock. And let's see here. We have Alex Lemons. I recognize your name. What is my overall opinion of Pixel Dan? I don't like him. Long and short of it. And I'm fine admitting that. I'm not shy about that.
And just to clarify, I know you wanted to jump in and answer those questions. For the audience there, it's very hard to have this conversation and keep up with everything in the chat. Normally, I've got a moderator, Tim Ward, is helping out today. Unfortunately, Michael Schaefer has some family business to attend. He normally sits in the background and puts the relevant questions up on the screen. So we're kind of short of crew member today, but Michael's got a very genuine reason for doing that. So thank you, Lio, for actually catching these questions, because I do want the audience interaction and everything. So and very quickly, we got a super chat here from Sal. Thank you very much, Sal. It says, question for Lio: what's a warrior without his weapons?
No warrior still. He'll get it.
Oh, to quote John Rambo, I always thought the mind was the best weapon. So if you've lost that, okay, retro blasting. Tony, if you want to take a break from your own stream, just ask Lio about Gundam, and then you can go get some tea and stare at crap in the fridge for like half an hour.
He did ask a question, and we need to get back to it. You asked me what are some of my other 80s properties that I love other than Transformers and Thundercats, right?
Yeah.
So here's my shorthand list. I do love He-Man, Masters of the Universe. I think the Filmation cartoon is fantastic. People like to do the whole, what was poorly animated. Anybody who says that doesn't know dick about animation, sit down and shut up. It was well animated. They had a limited budget, and they did it the smartest possible way ever. Other cartoons I like from the 80s, I actually love Brave Star. I think it is a fantastic cartoon. I also like Dinosaurs, which is another 80s property that's not very well known. Later on in the 80s, of course, the Ninja Turtles cartoon was fun for what it was. God, there's a lot of cartoons from the 80s that I like. That's part of the problem.
So what about Dungeons and Dragons?
I actually never watched it. And you would think within my household, because I grew up in a very strong conservative Christian household, that it was, it's because Dungeons and Dragons is the devil. I think it's genuinely because we just ran out of what's the word I'm looking for? Space on our schedule to watch.
Yeah.
There were almost 200 syndicated cartoons within the 80s alone. You can't watch all of them.
No. Dungeons and Dragons was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, and I can always remember going into a toy store and seeing the LJN toy line and all the characters, but barring I can't remember the guy's name now. There's only one character who actually appeared in the cartoon. I was like, what's so I never got into the toy line because I wanted the characters from the cartoon. But another cartoon I remember really, really enjoying when I was a child was Battle of the Planets. I loved that cartoon.
Oh my God, Tony, please tell me you picked up the Blu-ray of the original Japanese redub.
No, I haven't.
Tony, you're killing me, man. You need to. Everything you like about Battle of the Planets is better in the original series, and that's not the weeb talking. That's just genuine truth. Battle of the Planets was good. It was great for the time. They had to censor the living daylights out of it, but God, the original Gatchamon's gonna blow your mind when you watch it. I'm gonna find a freaking way to get it to you.
Okay. I've written that down. It's on the list.
dude, the box art for it was done by Alex Ross.
Okay. I'm a quite a Flash Gordon fan, so yeah. I'm Alex Ross. My brain doesn't work. I'm almost 44 years old. You said Alex Ross and I heard Alex Raymond. I'm like, what the hell?
No, it's one of the times where Alex Ross is like, you know what? I don't tend to do art of anime characters, but I grew up with Battle of the Planets and I loved it. I'm doing this. And it's the only time I bought intentionally a DVD box set instead of a Blu-ray one, because there were more DVDs, therefore more of Alex Ross's art.
And I just let the audience know I'm not actually that stupid. I do know who Alex Ross is as well. Just it went into my brain and came out the wrong way. So, do you have any so in your kind of collecting career, for want of a better word, where are you kind of at now? Are you still collecting vintage stuff, or are you collecting more, modern collectible toys?
Well, I'll answer that, but real quick, I need to remind you of one thing that you may not be aware of. This is going to sound really weird, but Thundercats and Battle of the Planets had 2 comic crossovers, and they actually were good.
Wow.
Right out of nowhere, but they did it, and this is the only good crossovers that Thundercats has ever had. But okay, as far as my collecting,
when was that? When did they come out?
2003.
Yeah, okay.
Alex Ross did the cover art for one set, and Scott J. Campbell did the cover art for the second set. So, okay, where I am in collecting now, that's actually been a kind of hard question even for myself, because I do like some of the stuff Hasbro's coming out, but after the Kingdom line, I pretty much said I'm not going to be a completionist about any of this anymore. The prices are going too high on retail stuff. It's being too much of a pain in the butt to find. They're getting better, but when we have something like third-party stuff that's existed for 16 years and Hasbro is just now up in the ante, there's a cognitive problem there, and Hasbro's not fixing its problems, and they're losing me on that. At the same time, when it comes to vintage stuff, there's some interest there for other specific things, like, because vintage, of course, changes from decade to decade. I'm actually going back and I'm buying some Beast Wars related things that I wanted when I was a teenager, because the way my brain works, sometimes I forget about doing something for years. So when I was a teenager, I looked at these things that were coming out of Japan for Beast Wars. I'm like, I want that. But then when in my mid 30s, I'm like, wait a minute, I can get that now. So yeah, I don't know if you look at my Instagram, but the different versions of Optimus Primal that I've been posting are things I wanted as a kid, and now I'm finally getting them. And I've had to shift my focus, and I actually am selling a whole bunch of more modern Transformer things because they're just sitting there. They're not even figures that I have like a personal attachment to or really like the character that it represents. It's just, I bought this because it completed the line. And at that point, I'm like, then why did I buy it? Do I really need the 3 quote unquote Rainmaker Seekers to complete the Transformer Siege line? Well, no, I don't care about any of them. They're not Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Thrustdirge, and Ramjet. Why would I care about 3 randos that are background characters? More importantly, why did I spend $70 on them? It's stuff like that. So I'm delving more into some third-party stuff for Transformers. I know the scene seems to be somewhat dying, because that's always my luck on things. But I'm kind of impressed with some of the things I've seen there. So I'm going to pursue that for a little bit. And, as far as Thundercat stuff goes, what else is there but vintage? There's the Bandai line. I have the entire Bandai line for the classics. I even have the 2011 Bandai line. I'm missing one thing for it, and I'm not paying $100 for a gimmicky slide toy, so I'll wait for that to go down eventually. The LJN line, I've stopped on that because, again, I'm not paying $1,200 for a toy that I don't even know is going to function right. I can't justify that within my own headspace, and I have everything else. Joe's I had to put a pause on too, because 2 reasons. Number one, their prices are just keep becoming astronomical. And secondly, as Michael, and as I'm sure you're aware, that plastic's degrading. Yes. I'm going to share this with you, and this is going to make you hurt. I went to the comic store, and they had a pristine straight arm Scarlet. Pristine. I bought her. I brought her home, got her out of the pack, just to notice that somehow in transit, the crotch snapped. And I can't find one to fix it. So now she's in a little baggie with a broken pelvis, and I'm like, well, that kind of killed this for me real quick.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly the early Joes, but it's a problem. It is a problem that does plague the line. I've seen images online of people. I can't remember how long ago this was. There was a guy who was saying that he had, I don't know if it was a straight arm or swivel arm, but the exact same figure, Scarlet, vintage Scarlet. The O-ring had perished, so he removed the screw from the back, no problem, opened up the figure, discarded the remnants of the dry rotted O-ring, put a new O-ring in, put it back together, screwed the screw in. I don't know if he over tightened it, but as soon as it nipped up, the whole torso shattered on him.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I've changed O-rings in nearly every one of my loose GI Joe figures because you have to after time. So to anyone in the audience, if you're doing that kind of, I wouldn't even call it a restoration. You're just changing an O-ring. But when you put the screw back in, it does not need to be tight. Just finger tight on the screwdriver until it just nips it just a touch and then leave it there. So.
Real quick, Alex Lemon says, would I enjoy a Last Stand of the Wreckers animated direct-to-DVD movie like the stuff DC has been putting out? No. And the reason why I say no is, number one, Last Stand of the Wreckers takes a lot of context for that world of Transformers. And secondly, DC's animated stuff lately has just been absolute dog crap. And we have another question here for me from Shav Gold. What are your thoughts on the new G.I. Joe figures? I cannot find them here where I am. Okay. Hot take. I've not collected or cared for any 6-inch Joes, and here's why. Part of the problem is they look like goofy costumes. They don't even look like military gear, and I come from a military family. That's one reason why Joes appeal to me. But the second most important reason, the fun of Joes is making them interact with vehicles and stuff, my dude. I can't do that with a 6-inch Joe with no vehicles and no idea of vehicles. I can't throw them in the freaking Mobat or the flag. Throw it in the flag. Just throw that across the dinner table, or an Oz Striker or anything like that. I don't see the appeal. The G.I. Joes, the original G.I. Joe toys from the 80s, and of course, they had the vintage stuff from way back in the day too. But when we're talking about action figures in the modern sense, the only thing that would have made the original vintage Joes perfect was to have a more solid crotch, so not an open one, a more solid one, and to have a slight wrist swivel. With that, it would have been perfect articulation. You don't need anything other than that for what you needed to do with those toys. Like, that's the appeal to me of G.I. Joe, is they are beautiful. They display fantastically. You can do dioramas with them without putting a whole bunch of work into it. They look great. They look generally a uniform set. The appeal to them is the aesthetic and the fact that I understand this military stuff, having grown up on Navy bases as a kid. Like, it's really cool. But, now the market's insane and thumbs are broken, crotches are broken, bands are rotten, and the newer stuff it doesn't appeal to me. It looks too try hard, let's throw it at the wall and hope it sticks. The simplicity of the old school military outfits they use for quite a few characters. Like, I can draw Duke from memory, and it's a very simple outfit, but it's iconic. With the new Duke from the classifieds, it's so doggone busy. And a modern military outfit's not that busy. They have the flak jackets and the backpacks and all that, but they're common sense. I don't even know what they're doing with half the stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the only vehicle they've brought out in the classified line was a motorcycle that came with Baroness, and it was not impressed with that. And then I saw a heap of announcements yesterday, or like pictures on social media where Hasbro put out a lot more photographs of the Snake Eyes toy line, like linked to the Origins Snake Eyes Origins movie coming up, and you can clearly tell these are the toys they're putting out aimed at the kids who are going to watch it. So figures with very simple articulation. But there was a lot of motorcycles in the toy line from what I remember seeing yesterday. There was at least one or two motorcycles, and it's like, but they're, sleek sports motorcycles. It's not like the Ram Cycle or the Silver Mirage. It's, it's not G.I. Joe. Did you watch the trailer for the Snake Eyes Origin movie?
Nope, I did not. I'm genuinely not interested.
Yeah, I'm not now, because I don't think it's going to be a bad film, but it's not going to be a G.I. Joe film.
Yeah, with me, you can do a modern take on things. You can tweak something, but when you remove the entire context of why something worked and the way it worked, because again, when I'm approaching this, I'm approaching it from the comic standpoint, not the Sunbow cartoon standpoint. But the entire story of Snake Eyes is fish out of water. And the reason why Storm Shadow hates him so much is because of that. And when you remove that aspect of it, you're kind of killing the drive. Again, final opinions are going to come when the movie comes out and people talk about it or whatnot, but that's my personal opinion. And I think as much as I love G.I. Joe, and man, this may upset people, I think there's too much focus on characters like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes when there are a lot of other characters with really interesting backstories and history that can be explored. Or you can just, I don't know, just do it as a military unit because they're kind of like your functional, dysfunctional family and the way they operate. You could just build a decent story on that and utilize all these characters with the massive diverse cast G.I. Joe has always had.
Yeah, I can't believe that this is the third live-action G.I. Joe movie to come out, and we still have yet to see a live-action interpretation of Stalker. That's just wrong to me. Stalker's one of my favorite characters. I mean, he was in Vietnam with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. He's got a very interesting background. He's a great character. Venkman, thank you for the super chat. It says, I need to replace the rubber O-ring on my vintage Scarlet because she has a nasty habit of bending over at the waist and it looks inappropriate.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it hasn't fully perished, the O-ring, but it's gone very loose. So
can you imagine how I feel going into a G.I. Joe group and saying, hey, anybody got Scarlet's crotch?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
I did. I'm like, man, that sounds inappropriate. It's going to be on a watch list.
Yeah. All right, Lio, we've been going for about an hour, and I'm not sure. I'd never like to assume that people have watched other episodes of Palitalk, but this is the point in the show where I like to play a little game with my guests. Are you up for a little game?
I'm always up for a game.
All right, and this game I like to call...
I did not expect that.
Sum it up in one. So we're going to have 5 questions here. I'm going to throw out the names, and I'll be perfectly honest, guys. If you see on the bit of, you can't see that with the lighting. These are questions. I never ever write down the sum it up in one questions. I just whatever comes to my head. So I'm going to put out the name of whether it be a cartoon, an action figure, a movie, or some pop culture thing, and you have to try and sum that up in one word. Sound easy enough?
Man, I hope so. Dug on Rorschach audio test.
Okay, sum up for me in one word. Snarf. Wow. That is the best answer I've had in 13 episodes of Palitalk. I don't know what it meant, but
okay. You want a genuine word? I can give you one. Parent. Interesting.
Can you elaborate?
I'd be happy to. A lot of people, when they look at Snarf, they find him annoying and it's a dumb sidekick character. Just because they still look at Snarf in the same way they did when they were kids. What did Snarf do? Well, I don't know, Lion-O. We shouldn't do this. This sounds dangerous. I don't like this idea. Snarf wasn't there for you as a child to identify with. He was there for your parents. Snarf, when you look at Thundercats from the viewpoint of a realistic adult, what did Snarf do? Well, I want to keep Lion-O safe. We shouldn't get involved in this. This is dangerous. Snarf is the voice of logical reason. He loves Lion-O. He loves his family. He doesn't want anybody to be hurt. He's trying to be rational. And again, he's the one character that doesn't have superpowers. The only thing he's capable of doing that the others can't are twofold, obviously. One, he can talk to other animals. And oddly enough, apparently Snarfs are incapable of evil. That's a really weird plot point, but it's there. Like, he doesn't have Panthro's strength, Chitara's speed, Tigra's intelligence, Lion-O's courage. He's there for your parents to say, I like this character. He makes sense. He's trying to make sure this dude doesn't go get stupid and get murdered by a mummy man. Like, I love Snarf, and I will defend him to the end of the days.
Perfect. Okay. I have to keep track of the 5 questions as well, because I always lose track. So I'll kill a little tally here. So that's one question down. Sum up for me in one word: Watership Down.
This one might be a little more difficult. Actually, no. Never mind. It's not difficult. Nature.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the brutal truth almost. Yeah.
Yep. Doesn't lie to its audience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that's why they used to, certainly growing up in England, that's why they used to make us watch that in school. Watership Down. Yeah. George Aitkins, his word would be massacre. Yeah, this game summing up in one. I've had a lot of guests of saying like, can I use 2 words? It's like that would make the game so much easier because you can have an adjective and a verb or whatever.
Rabbits.
Yeah, yeah. Having this game being just sum it up in one word makes it a little bit difficult for people. So, all right, sum up for me in one word. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to ask this question. I don't know why this just popped into my head. Sum up for me in one word. Retro blasting.
Assertive.
Yeah. Yeah. The word that pops into my head is honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why that popped into my head. It just did, and I hate to put you on the spot there talking about
it. Okay. It's okay. It's because Michael's secretly controlling us, Tony. That's the truth.
Yes, maybe. Okay, sum up for me in one word. Liono.
Let me see here. One word. Valiant.
Oh, great choice of word. Great choice, yeah. Would you like to elaborate on that answer?
Sure. The point of Liono's character was to have a character who is struggling with his identity, a character that's struggling with not having the solid anchor points that most people do when they grow up in general. He's a good allegory for people who are in broken homes, good allegory for people who have had stolen childhoods, people who have had to deal with adversity. And his response to it is never to shrink away from it. Sometimes it's to question what's going on. Sometimes he runs into it headstrong, a little bit too much. But ultimately, his desire is to do good and to help people and to try to assist in any way he can, even if it puts himself at risk. And I think there's nothing short of valor in that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Johnny Sorensen says here, fan theory, Tony and Lio are mecha robots and Mike is operating them remotely.
Well, I would at least appreciate him to give me a rocket punch then.
We got one question left, and I think I might need to take a moment to come up with a really good question for sum it up in one. So while I'm trying to come up with this final question, is there anyone in the audience who's got another question for myself or Lio or both of us? Throw your questions out there and we'll see what happens. And while we're waiting for the questions, Lio, have you got anything you would like to address the audience about?
Well, there were some comments there that I'd like to go ahead and talk about. Matt Swafford thinks you should watch the Beast Wars episode Code of Hero. I'm actually going to disagree. The reason why I'm going to disagree is because the entire reason why Code of Hero is so impactful is because the character that goes through what he does there, you've gone with and you understand. Just to give you a real quick TLDR here, Tony, Beast Wars is really well regarded because it's kind of the first Transformer series that outside of the movie has no problem showing you that war has consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And characters die, and they don't really come back. Except, of course, the Optimus character, because he always does.
Yes, yeah. All right, there's a few other questions here for you. Mint Heart says, what are your thoughts on the current state of the toy community? I know very little about it, but it seems like a bit of a mess. Oh, that's I don't know about you, Lio, but that's a very difficult thing for me to sum up because there are different pockets of the community. Like if you're talking about the YouTube community or the G.I. Joe community or the Transformers community. It's very, very hard thing for me to kind of sum up. Personally, I think the community around this channel, Analog Toys, and all the channels that we're collaborating with on Iconicon, including LioConvoy and my friends Retro Blasting and Toy Polloi and 2 Cents Toys and all those guys. Amongst us, we're all great friends, and there's no issue at all. So yeah.
For the fact that I'm dumb and I collect Thundercat stuff. A couple other now, as far as Minhart's question, she knows how I feel about that because she hears me rant and rave because that's my kid. But William Curry said, "What would a Tony and Lio mecha combination be called?"
Oh, I don't know. You got any ideas there?
Let's go ahead and just be really cheap and call it Tony Convoy.
That works for me. I sent Michael French an email the other day about an idea I had for like a once a month live stream with the two of us. I'm not going to reveal kind of what the concept was, but I was like, Michael has a brilliant mind for words and coming up with really interesting titles for things. So I sort of put this concept to him in an email and, what do you think of it? But, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with as a name, because my idea of French and Roberts is just nah.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Oh, dear. At LioConvoy Reviews, likewise, I didn't care for how crossover heavy it became near the end. As you're talking about...
He's talking about the IDW Transformer comics, I believe. We have a couple other questions here. LioConvoy, tell Tony there is no mass shifting in Beast Wars. Mass shifting is what he did not like. That's true. There is no mass shifting in Beast Wars.
That's good to know.
Let's see here. Gojitron, I believe. Yeah. He asked me Kingdom Beast Wars figures versus 90s originals. Quick thoughts. Okay. I have these things so I can talk about them. While I do like the detailed sculpting of the modern figures, the 90s ones are just fun to play with, man. Just transforming them back and forth is just an absolute joy. So that's my answer there. And for Kevin Thomas, you ever thought of reading Imim's poetry to lo-fi, still hot beats? Asking for a friend. Well, I can't now because they're gone. I'm just going to leave that at
that. Michael Schaefer here says, this is his idea for our mecha robot, Analog Ho. I like that.
Oh, God. Minhart says Analog Convoy. And I've had a couple other questions here. Let's see here. Lyle, what modern cartoons do you like? I know we didn't go much into animation here, but I'm also going to say to Grim, I am not super duper excited for Motu Revelation. I have nothing but fear for it. Modern cartoons that I like, I enjoyed Gravity Falls. I enjoyed, oddly enough, OKKO. Tony's going to completely blank out on these, so it's okay. I enjoyed Gumball. I want to see Infinity Train because I haven't seen that, but it looks really good. I enjoyed, for the most part, the new Voltron cartoon. I enjoyed what I saw of Castlevania.
What's Castlevania about?
Have you ever played the video game Castlevania?
No, I don't. I'm not a gamer, so
okay. Castlevania is all about killing Dracula.
Yep.
So that's what it's about.
The reason I asked that, so they've done an animated series about that?
Yes, they have. It's on Netflix.
Ah, okay. I'm going to look that up because, got a bit of a thing for Dracula.
Dracula. Stephen S. says, Lyle, what 80s movies are you a fan of? Okay, well, obviously I like the Transformers movie because why wouldn't I? I like the 1985 Godzilla film and 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante. As far as animated films, the DuckTales movie, I believe that was in the 90s, so that might not count. I can't remember if that's in the 90s or 80s. It's been so long. The thing is with 80s movies, there's the classics, like Predator and all that. And I enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed Commando. Like, I love Commando. I get in joking arguments with my wife. She's like, I like Taken. I'm like, Commando did it better. No, I didn't. I said, yes, it did, because they had rocket launchers. And Arnold. And the one-liner. Let off some steam.
It's a live action comic book, and I love that film. I love it. it's a live action comic. It's just brilliant.
We have Pedro Almeida asking, both of us, have you heard any rumors about retro 3 3/4 or 3 4/4 GI Joe O-ring releases? Would it ever happen? I will say I hope it does for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm cheap, and number 2, they need to reissue. They have reissued Transformers, they have reissued Star Wars, they've reissued Ghostbusters.
Yep.
When are they going to reissue the old Joes? This is getting stupid.
Well, they made an announcement. I can't even remember what year we're in now. It must have been last year. They made the announcement, hey, the retro wave, and after the retro Star Wars wave, and then, as you said, Ghostbusters and all that stuff, the way it was announced, a retro G.I. Joe 3 3/4 wave, everyone was like, yes, we're going to get the O-ring style. And then they just gave us recolored 25th anniversary figures. It was such a con. It was a con. It was insulting, I found, as a collector to, having seen what the Star Wars retro collection was, that was a recreation of the vintage figures from 1978. And then you put the same brand into G.I. Joe and go, yeah, we're going to bring out a retro G.I. Joe line that consisted of 3 figures originally. Deceptive marketing there.
Rodimus Primal says the last season of Castlevania Adventure is very far for his liking. I haven't seen it yet, so I'll have to reserve my opinion, but I do it just so chat knows I enjoy Rodimus Primal. Really honest channel. He's one of the first people to talk out once it arrived, or once they saw major production images of the Unicron HasLab thing, where they were deceptive in what they promised versus what was produced. He was one of the first bigger content creators out there calling them out directly, and he's an honest voice. If you're big in Transformers, I can't recommend Rodimus Primal enough.
Good, thank you. I have watched. I don't watch a lot of his stuff because I'm not, a Transformers fan. But I have watched some. I am very aware of Rodimus Primal. I've seen some of his content before. So, I think I've got the question in my head now. The last sum it up in one question. But okay, then. Sum up in one for me. Transformers the movie.
Let's see here. What word do I want to use to sum up Transformers the movie? Traumatizing.
Very, very similar to the word I had in my head, which was devastating. Traumatizing, devastating. Yeah. Even as someone who did not have a huge connection to the characters, I was aware of who they were and everything. So, what are your thoughts on the G.I. Joe the movie, the animated movie?
Again, another hot take from me. Surprise! I actually really like it. The Cobra Law stuff is out there. Oh, it's out there, but it's that cheesy. And I know it goes against the general principle of G.I. Joe, but it's the kind of cheesy comic book stuff I would somewhat expect. It is the most bizarre of all origins for Cobra Commander. Like, anybody watching G.I. Joe at that time and reading the comics, like, well, I know what he's going to be. Ancient Snake Scientist was not my first choice. Matter of fact, it wasn't even in my top 10, but there it is. Good voice acting, decent animation, with the exception of the constantly hopping Duke wound. I love that movie specifically for one scene. If anything else, what was it? There's only 2 ways out of my command: on your feet like a man, or in a ditty bag, an itty bitty ditty bag. Just the amount of sass from Sergeant Slaughter. It's like, heading back to base for chow. What do you expect me to walk? No, you can run.
There are parts of that movie that are really good. I love the intro. The animation on the intro is fantastic. And then I remember I can still remember seeing it for the first time on VHS. I believe I didn't see it in the cinema or anything, but that intro was fantastic. And then you're seeing all the characters that you love in that intro: Snake Eyes, Recondo, those kind of people. And then you find out that the movies about all these other characters.
Yes, but here's the kicker. Number one, firstly, I play that every 4th of July because, in my opinion, it's the most American thing ever. And secondly, that entire scene was key animated by the same guy who did the X-Men intro for the 90s X-Men animated series.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's got an excellent intro as well. That's another cartoon I did watch. That was a cartoon I was kind of watching in high school, was X-Men. So they had a big following here in Australia. It was very popular.
Would you believe I wasn't allowed to watch it when I was a kid?
Because...
All right, so my parents, they had a very decent rule. We weren't going to watch anything that they didn't screen first.
Yep.
And, of course, our luck, the episode my mom catches, is when Apocalypse has his 4 horsemen. Keep in mind, conservative Christian family.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been the episode where Nightcrawler talks about the love of God and talks to Wolverine about repentance stuff. It had to be the one about Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. My mom just said no. I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah. And here's me, on the other hand. In my childhood, I would have been, 6 or 7 years old, and my parents, they had a Betamax player. They started off with Betamax, then went to VHS, and not the first film. I think the very first film I saw on Betamax was Clash of the Titans, quickly followed by the 1980 Flash Gordon movie. But a movie that I sat down and watched with my dad was the Bushido Blade, and that was at age 6. And he didn't screen that; he just sat down and I'm almost positive someone gets beheaded in the Bushido Blade, and I was like 6.
You saw Bushido Blade?
Yeah, dude.
Would you believe that writer who did Bushido Blade also worked on Thundercats?
Oh wow! No,
yeah, that was God. I can't remember his name, but he's like the dude who did some of the best episodes and some of the worst episodes. And of course, now that I need to say it, his name escapes me. Give me a second here. Thundercutter episode writer. It's on the tip of my tongue. William Overgard. He wrote Bushido Blade, and he wrote a lot of random Thundercat stories. He specifically wrote a Thundercutter and introduced the Samurai Hachiman because he knew about Japanese culture, and that's why he also did Bushido Blade.
Okay, and I take it you've seen Bushido Blade?
I have. I'm actually a big fan of Chambara films. Old school samurai films are really good to me. I also really like Harakiri. Really good movie. Yeah.
So I haven't seen Bushido Blade since I was a young child. I have more memories of the conversations my parents had after me watching that than I actually do have of it, where, I'm sure someone gets beheaded in that movie. I mean, it's not surprising. It's a samurai film. And then my mum and dad chatting afterwards, and my mum's like, should we have really let him watch that? And my dad was like, well, he didn't have too much of an emotional reaction, and I even at that young age, I understood that it was some kind of a special effect, and it didn't give me nightmares. So
dude, I had similar experiences. Like when I was a kid, things like Beavis and Butthead, The Simpsons, South Park, stuff like that. Definitely no-nos. Because they were vulgar, or they had sexual content, or just general stupidity. I'll admit, if you try to get him to watch an episode of Beavis and Butthead, he'd probably commit war crimes. But Predator is absolutely fine. All the Rambo films, fantastic.
Yeah.
Commando, my mom's like, don't you think it's wrong to expose them to this much violence? No. It's like, why not? I was in Nam when I was 17. You think I care about anything?
Yeah.
They need to know about this. This is war.
So, are you also a fan of Akira Kurosawa?
Oh, he's that dude. You want to talk about a director that had testicles? We're not going to use fake arrows. We're going to use real ones. Make him actually afraid. Yeah, I love Akira Kurosawa's work. Yojimbo, Sanjuro, Seven Samurai, all fantastic films.
Yeah, I own all physical media versions of all those films. Yojimbo is quite possibly my favorite Akira Kurosawa film. I need to rewatch that actually. It's on a bookcase just around the corner here. Yeah, but I really got into collecting a lot of Akira Kurosawa films probably about 10 years ago. I went through this kind of phase where I wanted to read, because I had seen a lot of that stuff when I was young. My dad was really into samurai movies, and around the time like Bushido Blade was coming out, but that in the early 80s, that made him go back and revisit a lot of Akira Kurosawa films. So then, I had this period in like 2010 where for about 6 months, all the DVDs I was collecting were Akira Kurosawa films. So
they're really good films. It's an interesting history behind that as well. I mean, post-war Japan's filmography and all the other stuff it's wild. I mean, even some of the early Godzilla stuff, they were working through. Okay, so technically this one director is, by technicality, guilty of war crimes. So what do we do here? And one of the directors for Godzilla was like, I actually don't like violence. I was just kind of there.
Yeah. We've got a question here from Pedro. He says to both of you, what's the toy release you would like to see being made/remade before you die?
For me, it's really funny because while I like toys, my channel isn't toy-centric. I do occasional reviews of them, specifically a Thundercat-related thing, because I'm the only voice in the community that's going to not tell you to simp over Super 7's sloppy garbage. But I don't really look at something and say, you know what? I need a new toy of that. The only time I will instantly like that is when you have stuff like Gold Plastic Syndrome or something like that, and it's a really cool toy. You're like, a re-release of that without the problems would be nice. But if I went the rest of my life without like a new Lion-O figure or a new Optimus Prime, I don't think I'd be bothered. Also, because I'm an artist and I can just, I guess, draw it if I wanted to. But that's my personal view, and I think I might deviate from most of the toy community when I say stuff like that. So,
yeah. I think for me, it's really it's a toy line that I've already touched on in this show that I never had. I would like to see an action figure line based on the original Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, the characters in that cartoon. So, well, I would like to see it. I don't know whether I'd actually collect it. I've made no bones. I'm not a huge modern collector. I've started to branch into a couple of things. But yeah. And something I wouldn't mind seeing re-released would be the USSS flag. But because it would be a way that I could, possibly ever acquire one. But I know if Hasbro ever did that, they would make it a HasLab thing. They want you to stump up all this money and then wait 2 years. I'm not doing that.
Why? I mean, have you ever considered just like coming down to like Joe Fest and getting one and flying back to Australia?
Yeah. Me and the wife had plans. Well, I had plans that the wife was going to come. We really wanted to travel to the States this year. It would be coming up very soon, actually, to do Joe Fest and Toylanta, maybe? I worked it out that there was these two shows. Joe Fest was definitely one of them in the space of a few weeks, but given the current pandemic, Australians have a lot of trouble leaving the country. I have a lot of trouble even leaving the state. Some of our state borders are closed now and again. So actually, Bobby Valor was asking me about, coming to Joe Fest. And I said, well, when I return to Australia, if they even let me leave, when I return to Australia, I would have to go into 2 weeks of government enforced quarantine in a government run hotel. So the West Australian government has taken over a whole load of hotels down in Perth. And if you fly back in from another country, they basically stick you in a hotel room for 2 weeks, which you get the bill for at the end as well. And you are isolated for 14 days. I'm like, I don't fancy doing that.
We'll sneak in the country. We'll float you by on the USS flag.
But absolutely. We had big plans this year to come. I would really like to go to some conventions in the States where I can meet some fans of the channel. I would, happily present a panel on Action Force or something like that. But yeah, picking up a USSS flag, and I would fly to the States with a suitcase full of really cheap Kmart clothes. And on the last day, I just put on what I'm going to wear on the plane, ditch everything else out of the suitcase and stick the flag in it and fly back.
Yeah, the wife gives me grief because we've gone to TF cons and bot cons, and I am a Tetris master. I will find a way to stick all the random crap we bought in the suitcases and fly back with them. She's almost impressed. Almost. One more trip, and I'm sure she'll finally be impressed.
Yeah, I took my wife and son. It was their first trip to the United Kingdom. That was about 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. We went back to the United Kingdom, and I picked up the Rebel Troop Transport from Star Wars, a vintage one, complete with the rare hatch. You know, the flying pickle. It's quite a big toy, but obviously it doesn't weigh a lot. So the only way to get that back is on like the last day or the second last day of this trip to England. I had to go to a shop and buy a bigger suitcase to put it down one side of the suitcase and get it back to Australia. So
real quick, since we were talking about modern toys, I know I'm into them more than you and Michael are to this point, because I've kind of kept up with it. If I were to recommend to you a modern toy line you might like, because you're military minded for the obvious reasons, and you're a big Action Force Joe fan, I would actually recommend the modern 3 3/4 inch Halo line. And I'm recommending this. I recommend this because the action figures are solid. You don't have to heat them up to move them. They're very posable. And when you get the Warthog, which is basically it's close to an Ostriker, I'd say, in terms of design, if we were talking about it. Actually, hold on. I don't even need to sit here and wax on. I actually have them up here. Let me go grab it. Come here, you. No, Deathsaurus, you stay where you are. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn the camera on. Stop it. All right, so this is the Warthog.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the look of that.
Well, the kicker is, like, again, the figure sits in very well. It has the gunner chair in the back, which also sits well. The wheels actually have some sort of spring tension on them for the section. Yeah. And when I took this thing out of the box, I got like serious Joe flashbacks because you have to assemble it when you take it out of the box. Now,
cool.
Taking a look at this, how much do you think this cost in American money?
$40.
25.
Wow.
And it comes with the figure.
Wow. Okay.
And this thing, dude, I could beat a man to death with this. It is actually solid. this thing isn't hollow plastic garbage. Like, this thing is a solid piece of equipment. I highly recommend the line. Even if you're not a Halo fan, it's just really neat and solid. And it even has a freaking detail on the cockpit or the driver's chair. You can deal with the turning wheel or the steering wheel and all this stuff. Like, it's a really good line. It's cheap. Like, the figures are $10 each. The vehicles are $25 to $30 each, and it's just fantastic.
I'm going to check it out afterwards and see if they're available at retail here in Australia. Obviously, if they're not available at retail here, then I end up incurring massive shipping costs. But I'm going to definitely check that out.
Let me go ahead and look at that. I have to answer the question here. Somebody asked who makes the Halo toys. It's called Halo World, and I'm trying to remember what the name of the company is. So. God, they're well known, but their name escapes me currently. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yep.
Yeah, like Walmart has what I just showed you for $25 right now.
K Slater 23 says it's good to see that Lio has real hands and not paws. Jazzwares, everyone's saying Jazzwares.
Yeah, that's it. Jazzwares.
Yep.
Sorry. But no, I don't have paws, despite the lion mask. I'm not actually a furry. I'm sorry. But no, just they're really fun, and I have yet to break anything. And they're a good quality plastic. It's not like NECA, and I really hate the fact that NECA uses bad quality plastic because their Toon Turtle and movie lines are just beautiful. So, if I were to recommend you specifically, it would be that, because again, you're military minded. It's got sci-fi versions of them, but they're military-esque vehicles like the Warthog, and you got this little scooter bike thing. It's a lot of fun, and the enemies are of course all aliens, so that's fun too.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, Lio, we've been going for an hour and a half. I think we'll wrap up the show there. Please stay on afterwards. I'd like to have a quick chat with you afterwards. But
I'm in trouble.
No. There's homework. I've got to give you the results of your assessment.
Oh boy.
No, but look, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and join me on Palitalk. And before we close down, is there any kind of final thing you'd like to say to the audience before we go?
The only thing I can really say to the audience is sometimes you have to examine your thought process and why you like something or to what lengths you think you should go to defend said thing. And sometimes you can't let, or most times you can't let a disagreement about a property be a defining issue. And more importantly, branch out sometimes. Sometimes us older guys, we get so stuck in the rut of what we like and what we're used to that we stop experimenting with things and stop experiencing new things, and that really closes you off. So for those of you who are big on 80s cartoons, try a few of the new ones. Not all of them suck, I promise. Quite a few of them don't. And same thing with modern toys. Some of them are really neat. Some third-party stuff is really cool. Just experiment a little bit. There are people who are getting those dollar store $1 action figures or whatever they are, and they're really enjoying
Final
them.
Faction.
So, and people wouldn't have looked into those until people started buying them and talking about how neat they found them. So just experiment, reach out, get outside of your bubble. It's okay.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to try and look up Castlevania and see if I can watch it. So I've got Netflix. Did you say that was on Netflix?
Yes, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, so I've got Netflix, but Netflix Australia is sometimes a little bit different. But hopefully that's on there, and I'll
get a VPN. Get a VPN and switch it to America. You can watch whatever you want.
I have a VPN.
There you go, then.
All good. I'm sorted. All right. Thank you ever so much for joining me, Lio. Thanks to everyone who's in the chat, everyone who sent a super chat. This has been an absolute blast. And you will see me. I'm doing another live stream on Sunday, but I really want to quickly plug Monday night. I'll be appearing live, but not on Analog Toys. I'm going to be over on Sal's 2 Cents Toys channel for an episode of The Way We Played. I'm really looking forward to that. So
nice.
I'm going to keep plugging Sal's channel while I'm here as well. So
good channel.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Later.